we're here to close the year together and to once more meditate a little bit before we go on and join our families and go back to our crazy shopping, right? Take that last minute here to think about the meaning of Christmas and reflect about this day in this time where we celebrate Jesus' birth and what it means. So from the book On the Way to the Light by the Spirit Emmanuel, chapter 12, The Advent of Jesus. The definitive age of humankind's spiritual adulthood has begun. For Jesus, with his divine exemplification, has delivered the code of fraternity and love to all hearts. I'm going to read this again. The definitive age of humankind, spiritual adulthood, has begun. For Jesus, with his divine exemplification, has delivered the code of fraternity and love to all hearts. So, the first part of the sentence speaks about adulthood, spiritual adulthood. What does that mean? What does that look like? And then the second part of the sentence says that a specific code has been delivered to the human heart. When I read this, it reminded me of the many days that something's delivered to my house and is a certified mail, and I'm not there to sign. So what happens? They leave you that orange, pink, whatever, piece of paper, annoying piece of paper. That means that you have to go to the post office and pick up the delivery. So, a code has been delivered. My question is, were you home to sign the paper? And in receiving the delivery, right? What is it that we would need to do? Because it's a code. So when you receive a code, you need to decodify. And what does that mean? It means that you need to seek to understand what that code is about. What is the message? The meaning of the message. So you need to comprehend the code. You need to understand the code. And then you need to be able to apply the code, to integrate that code into your life. So being home to receive the message, signing the little piece of paper. Okay, dear Jesus, I got your message. Now I'm going to do my job. I'm going to apply myself to understand what this code means. And once I understand and I comprehend, I'm going to start applying to my daily life. And this is what will take us to this spiritual adulthood. So our purpose today is to explore a little bit more in depth the meanings of this message and this stage, so that we can say that we celebrate the birth of Jesus fully, entirely, within our hearts. Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, items 1 to 5. In those days, a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinus was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Joseph also went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house and family of David. He went to be registered with Mary, to whom he was engaged and who was expecting a child. So this is a passage from the Gospel of Luke that speaks about what was happening when Jesus, just before Jesus was born. And if you study that, you're going to learn that there's a lot of controversies, historical controversies, questioning whether even a census was truly going on at that time or not. But we are not here to delve into controversies. We're here to seek the most important meaning of the message. The point is that Jesus was born in a time that there was some sort of crisis going on, and one thing for sure is that there was no place for him to be born. It was a time of crisis, and there was no place for him to be born. And so, Mary and Joseph looked for a place where he could be born, and they found a place. The place was at the barn. The place was the manger. And the book On the Way to the Light says that the manger marks the starting point of Jesus' teachings. Humility is the key to all virtues. Humility is the key to all virtues. So when he's born in a manger, because all the inns were taken, there was no place for him to be born. He's born in a manger as to tell us in the very first lesson from the moment that he's born that humility is the key for all virtues. Very well. And then he goes on in his gospel in so many different passages and in so many ways, emphasizing to us the importance of humility, of humbleness. So just to cite a few, he says, blessed the poor in spirit. He says, if you do not become like a little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. The Son of the Man has not come to be served, but to serve. Whenever you are invited, go and sit in the lowest seat. Whoever humbles himself will be exalted. Just to cite a few, there are more passages where he reminds and he emphasizes that humility is the key to all virtues. Yet, there is a big contradiction apparent in the message that was delivered to us, and we probably went home to sign the slip, because the gospel, according to Spiritism, in chapter 7, item 11, the item is called Pride and Humility. It states, humility is a much neglected virtue among human beings. A much neglected virtue among human beings. The key virtue, the beginning of his message, is something that is neglected by the majority, if not all of us, in this planet. The question is, why? Why is it neglected? Certainly, it's not neglected because we have not heard about it. It's not neglected because we have not read about it. And it's not neglected because we haven't spoken about it. I'm here speaking about it today. And so many speakers speak about humility in one way or another in their lectures. So why is it neglected? It is neglected because, have you seen a little child who thinks about the well-being, let's say a 2-3 years old, who's more concerned about the well-being of the neighbor than of his own? No. Maybe one of these children, they're reincarnating right now, right? But the ones that we have known so far, when we think of a little child, what is the characteristic of children? They are what? They are completely self-centered. They're completely self-centered. The world revolves around them. This is us. This is us. We, spiritually speaking, we are completely self-centered. Completely. There are moments where we try to go outside of ourselves. But the reason why it is in order for us to be humble and experience humbleness, it is necessary that our egos are fully healed, that our persona, what do I mean by our persona? This personality, our personalism, what I think, what I want, the way I see the world, my truth, can be healed to open space for God's truth to take place. So it's not that we don't want to be humble, it's that humbleness is a very highly advanced stage of awareness. It requires a level of spiritual maturity. It requires a level of connectedness with God that we don't experience at this point. So, emotionally speaking, like I was saying, we are very much like children. We want to appear, we want to be seen, we want to be validated by others. We live in a society that we have changed God for Facebook. What do I mean by that? We draw our sense of self-worth from the likes that we get on Facebook as opposed to God's likes. And we live to be seen. Now humbleness asks us to disappear so that the whole can be seen, so that Jesus can be seen, so that God can be seen. So it's neglected not because we are not trying. It's neglected because it requires a level of spiritual maturity that takes work. And it is basically a journey. So there is a book in Portuguese called Reflecting the Soul. And it's written by a group of psychologists. It's in Portuguese, so Refletindo a Alma, a group of psychologists. They are part of the nucleus of psychological studies, Joana de Angelis, in Brazil. Several psychologists who gathered to study the work of Joana de Angelis. And so in chapter 7, written by Claudio Sinotti, one of the psychologists, he cites Joana de Angelis, and Joana de Angelis in her work, she speaks about 5 different levels of awareness. And they are, the first, it's called when we are sleeping without dreams. The second one is when we are sleeping with dreams. The third one is when we are awakening. The fourth one is the transcendence of the ego. And the fifth one is called the cosmic awareness. Okay, so forget about the first 3 ones. The fourth stage is where we get to the point in our awareness where we transcend the ego and we transcend the collective. Because we are much more connected to God. Because we identify much more closely to God than we identify to the things that culture expects from us. All of us in our personalities, we have made some slight or not so slight adjustments so that we are liked by our society. In this level of awareness, our only adjustment is seeking God's approval and no one else. That's a different level of awareness. And the fifth level of awareness is what's called the cosmic awareness, which is the level that Jesus arrived, where he and the Father become one. And Francis of Assisi also, because he saw God everywhere. And he spoke to the animals as if God was in them and is in them, right? So that is the ultimate level of awareness. And Joana says, I can't describe this because one needs to walk the walk in order to even say what that feels like. Okay? So these are levels of awareness that are far from us, but within our reach. It's possible. And we need to be in this level of awareness so that our hearts can be filled with humbleness and humility. Now, to give us a perspective of why humility is so neglected and is such a foreign concept to the human heart. In another chapter of the same book, chapter 4, another psychologist, Gerardo Campana, he analyzes the human evolution and where we stand, psychologically speaking, in this evolutionary road. Joana de Angelis states, "It is comprehensible that after a very long period of the soul traveling through instincts and reflexes, the very little time in which logic thinking has been acquired has yet to provide the Homo sapiens the ability to overcome automatism in order to better act instead of react." So what is Joana telling us? Joana is telling us that our souls have been in this realm of instinct and reflexes for a really, really long time. And just recently, we acquired the ability to think logically. Therefore, we are very stuck in what she calls automatism, which means that for most part, we react, we don't act. We react, we don't take our times and build our actions so that they are in line with peace and harmony and love. We are constantly reacting. It's the animal in us. And he analyzed, how do animals live? What is the life of animals about? So animals live what? To survive, to reproduce, to eat. And for animals, territory is vital for survival. How do they delineate their territory? With smells. They pee, they poop, they produce smells, and they say, this is my territory where I am safe and I will survive. And they defend that territory. So, he says that the first primates, right, they were, what made them different than the animals is that for the first time they had insights into reasoning. And because they had insights and they started to reason, with that came responsibility and consequences. And that allowed them to evolve faster than the animals, because once you think and you have consequences, you also have the ability to learn and to progress at a faster pace. Still, he says, there is not a lot of difference between the primates from the animals, because they too hunted and were hunted. So for millions of years, we had primates on Earth. Let me repeat that. Millions of years, we had primates on Earth. And it wasn't until 10,000 years ago, just yesterday, that we started to plant and to domesticate animals. Just yesterday. In contradiction to millions of years living pretty much like animals, right? With instincts. So since then, 10,000 years ago, we evolved very quickly, especially with our intelligence, to the point that we built civilizations, cultures, and we went out of Earth into space. He says, however, a closer look at our civilization shows us that we still function in the realms of relationships, basically moved by the same factors that move animals and primates. The majority of our energy is consumed in surviving. Oh, Tati, you found my phone. Thank you, sweetie. This morning I lost my phone. My printer didn't work. Thank you, my love. Sorry for the interruption. And so I thought there was a spirit against me because the printer didn't print, the phone disappeared, and I'm like, I gotta get to the center. Anyways, oh my goodness, welcome. Jesus is in the house. It must be Christmas. Yes, wonderful, welcome. All right, so let me just get back to here. So, the majority of our energy is still consumed in our survival mode. Okay? So, and he cites many examples on how that is, but I'm going to take one example. For example, we're extremely territorial. We're territorial. We don't pee and poop, but we do other things. Okay? From the big picture, right? We are territorial and we like to move in tribes. Because when you have next to you the people from your tribe, it gives you a sense of security that you can better defend your territory, your ideas, your point of view, regardless of what their idea and point of view means to the whole. Because who cares about the whole? I care to be right. I care that my idea is heard. I care that my tribe is superior. And so we organize ourselves in tribes, political tribes, sports teams, religious tribes, spiritual center tribes. Because my spiritual center and their spiritual center. And within the spiritual center, we have department tribes. And then within the spiritual center, we have the group that is our own tribe within the tribe of the spiritual center. And we go on moving tribes and defending our territories very, very much like our primate brothers and sisters of not too long ago. The result of this way of living is that we compete with one another, we distrust one another, we disguise, and more gently than before, we kill one another. Sometimes with disdain, sometimes by closing our hearts and not forgiving, sometimes with words that can kill, that can destroy one's self-esteem, that can put one down. And so the result of this instinctive life that prevails is still in us, places a challenge for us in our relationships. And a lot of our suffering comes every time that someone does not buy our point of view, that someone thinks differently than us. That, for us, is a major, major challenge because we are majorly self-centered. Why? Because we are bad? No, because we're primitive. That's why. So it's not evil, it's immaturity. It's not evil, it's inexperience. We are still afraid, like the animals are afraid. We're still fighting, we're still defending. We're still fearful of losing. We live in an emotional survival mode, without being able to understand that there is room for everybody, and that we gain a lot more often when we actually lose. But this analysis provides us a perspective in why it is so difficult for Jesus to be born in us. If we go back to the beginning of our lecture, the inns are too crowded. The inns are too crowded. They're crowded with the guests of self-centeredness. They're crowded with the guests of an ego that is ill. Our inns are crowded with pride, with selfishness, with arrogance, with a sense of false superiority. And so, Mary and Joseph keep looking for that place, the humble place, the manger, where Jesus can be born. In the night of his birth, a star crossed the sky, leading the kings to his presence. The star continues to shine bright above us, and it shines brighter in the darkest nights of our lives. When we are in the depths of a crisis, when the sky seems to be without stars, if we look carefully, we'll see that star shining over us brightly. And this star for us is the gospel. And for us, Spiritists, is the Spiritist philosophy who comes to revive the gospel of Jesus in our hearts. But it can be there shining bright. It's important that we decide to stand up and follow it and walk. It's not enough to contemplate and to say, wow, what a beautiful star shining on the sky. No. It's guiding us from place 1 to place 2. So we must walk, follow the star. Raul Teixeira was here with us not too long ago. And he told us, when the doctor prescribes you a medication, how many of you read the instructions about how to take the medication? We usually open that thing and throw in the garbage, right? So the gospel is available to us. We must read it. We must read it. We must study it. We must love it. We must not only read, but we want to integrate the message in our lives. But I'm going to tell you something. The effectiveness of the medication is proportional to the understanding that you have of your moral disease. Let's think about that. If I have the medication in front of me, but I have no idea what the symptoms are in me, morally speaking, then it's going to be another beautiful text that I'm going to read and say and cry. This is so beautiful, it's so moved, but it goes anywhere. Because you must know the guests in your inn. Who are they? What are they doing in the inn of your soul? Who are they? What is their role? Why are they there? If you know the guests in your inn and you know them well, you treat them with kindness. And in treat them with kindness, you integrate them with love. And little by little, you open in your heart space for Jesus to be born. Not by saying, go away, undesirable guest. No. You are here, occupying a space in my heart. Let me understand where you came from. What are you doing here so that I can take care of you and open space for different feelings to be born in my heart. So we shouldn't be afflicted with this information because enlightenment is a journey. And Jesus loves us where we are. He knows that although born to the world, he remains very much unknown to most of us as he was unknown to his own disciples. He knows that although born to the world, he remains very much unknown to most of us, as he was unknown to his own disciples. And when he looks at us, he doesn't see ungrateful people. He sees little children. That's what he saw in Peter when Peter denied him for 3 times. So if we go to the book, Good News, and read the Spirit Humberto de Campos, Jesus tells Peter, the time for my testimony is approaching. I know beforehand that you will disperse in the final moments. Pay attention to what he says. This is natural, because for now, you are only prepared to learn. You only prepare to learn. Peter had no idea of what Jesus was talking about, like us. We read and we still have no idea what he was talking about. So he tells him, I'm leaving. He says, Lord, where are you going? And Jesus looks at him and says, you are not yet ready to follow me. The testimony is one of great sacrifice and extreme abnegation, and only later you will possess the necessary strength required. He's speaking to all of us. He's telling us, you are not ready to follow me. Because to follow me, I'll ask from you great sacrifice and extreme, not any type of abnegation, extreme abnegation. You're not ready. You are in the place where you only prepare to learn. I cannot follow you, Lord. Are you, Lord, by any chance questioning my courage? Aren't I a man? For you, I'll give you my own life. And Jesus smiled and pondered, Peter, your inquietude deserves other teachings. Experience will bring you better conclusions. In fact, I affirm you that tonight, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. Dear Lord, do you judge me this evil? No, Peter, I do not suppose you indifferent or ungrateful to my teachings. But you learn today still that the man of the world is more frail than evil. So he looks at us and he does not suppose us indifferent or ungrateful, just frail. Just frail. Let's go to Primícias do Reino. The first news of the kingdom would be the translation by Amélia Rodrigues. And now we find a narrative of Peter. He's fishing. It's a very well-known passage when Jesus appears to him and says to him, throw the net on the right side. And he pulls the net and he's in awe with the quantity of fishes. He makes it back to the beach. They sit, they have dinner, and then Jesus will ask him, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, he answered. You know I love you. And Jesus said, feed my lambs. Jesus asked a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, he answered. You know I love you. Jesus told him, shepherd my sheep. And then he asked for the 3rd time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Peter was deeply hurt that Jesus has asked him a 3rd time, do you love me? Lord, you know all things, he replied. You know I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. The Peter who disowned Jesus 3 times. Now Jesus comes to him and wants to make sure at that point that Peter had gathered enough strength and enough courage, and that Jesus has grown enough in him, and that he, Peter, the man, the persona, had diminished enough, and Christ was bright enough in his heart so that he could go to the next step of great sacrifice and extreme abnegation. So when Jesus asked him about his love, he wants Peter to reflect, what is the size of that love? What is the meaning of that love? How big has Jesus became within his soul? Was he ready to give the testimonial, the final testimonial? And then we go to another book called Antologia Mediúnica no Natal, which means Antologia is a collection of mediumship messages related to Christmas given by a number of different spirits. And there is a chapter called The Christmas of the Apostle. And in there we find now Peter, old, tired, in prison. The soldiers come and take him. And he's walking to his crucifixion. Serene, peaceful. And as he's walking to his final destination, his mind reviews all the moments that he had spent with Jesus. The moments fishing together, the moments where they shared the meal, the conversations, the moments where they healed together, the challenges, the persecutions, everything comes back to the mind of the apostle. And deep in his heart, he can't think of anything else but how much he longs for Jesus' presence, how much he misses him, how much he wishes to see him again. The crowd around crying in reverence, in respect to that man and everything that he had done. And one soldier, very disrespectful, insulting him all along the way. They crucify him. He barely feels anything. His mind is completely in the expectation of meeting the Lord. But it takes a little while for him to die. And then he said to that soldier, takes a stone and throws on his head. He bleeds and he dies. And very few moments later, he finds himself outside of the body, free, happy, ecstatic, eyes up to the sky when he sees the image of the beautiful man coming towards him. And he kneels down, and it's Jesus who has come and takes him carefully in his arms and takes him away to the places where only the apostles, the ones who have been ready for the big sacrifice and extreme abnegation, can go. And for a period of time, they spend some time together, and Peter recovers himself, and they enjoy the beauties of these spheres where we one day will be. But then comes a moment that Jesus said, Peter, I now must go. And he's like, Master, but where are you going? And he points out this very dark dot in space. And he says, for as long as there's one person crying in our home, in our planet, I must work. And Peter said, well, Master, me too. And they live together back to this place we call home, to be with us and to help us. We go back to Jesus' question, now to all of us. Do you love me? Do you love me? And one more time, do you love me? Go and shepherd my sheep. Go and feed my sheep. Go and take care of my sheep. Go and love one another. We are still in the phase where we are certainly learners, far from being the apostles. But may this Christmas be a time where, when we gather around the food and the tree, may our presence, our emotional and spiritual presence to our Lord, be the commitment to engage in small gestures of sacrifice and abnegation, sacrificing our pride, sacrificing our point of view, sacrificing our ego, so that little by little He can be truly born in the inn of our hearts. Merry Christmas to all of you. Thank you so much for being here today, for being part of this family. I really, really wish Christmas to be what it's meant to be. This time of inner reflection, this time of incredible gratitude. And although we are still very, very small children, He was born 2,000 years ago. The star is out there for whoever wants to follow it. And so it's easier if we do this together, helping one another, forgiving one another, because we are all so frail. The man of the world is more frail than evil. So may this Christmas be a place where compassion, brotherhood, fraternity, all these things that we spend the entire year talking about, studying in our study groups, can come true within our hearts and within our lives.
Hey
Thank you very much. Let's do our final prayer. Dear Father, thank you so very much for this opportunity of today, of this year, the opportunity of this sacred space, the opportunity of meeting and working with all these generous souls, incarnate and discarnate. Thank you so much for the abundance of blessings that shine over us throughout the entire year. Thank you so much for your message of redemption and hope. Thank you so much for your kindness, for your compassion and mercifulness toward your children. At this time, dear Lord, as we celebrate your presence and birth in us, we ask you to bless us once more with your love towards the ones who represent you today, all the good spirits, our mentors, our benefactors, who join us at this time in giving and in receiving the blessings from the higher spheres of love that come down on us, touching our souls, reaching the depths of our heart, and bringing comfort and healing to the little and wounded children that we all bring within ourselves. May all of us now feel and see with the eyes of the Spirit the light and the love that shines over us. Let us feel the energy of love surrounding and embracing tightly each one of us, as if Jesus was telling us right now, dear child of mine, I love you. I love you and I cherish you. I cherish your efforts. I cherish your commitment. And I cherish your gift. Please continue on. Don't give up. I am with you at all times. Imagine his eyes looking at you with tenderness and love, and receive the gift. Accept his love. Feel embraced and feel that you are now close to him. And take this feeling with you as you return home. The feeling of love, the feeling of connectedness, and the certainty that in him all things are possible. Thank you so much, Jesus, for your loving presence. May each one of us return now to our homes, taking this multitude of blessings in our hearts. And may each one of us distribute these blessings in the forms of hugs, in the form of gratitude, in the form of kindness towards one another, towards our family members, our loved ones, and anyone who comes in our way. Bless this spiritual center. Bless this home with all the difficulties that we face that rise from our own hearts. May you always be the inspiration and the presence that sustains us and help us to move forward. Bless our homes. Many of our workers who are not here with us today, every single person who is linked to this home in one way or another, and all the people, dear Lord, that in this time of Christmas and end of the year are suffering, are in pain, because they long you too, because they have distanced themselves from your love. They can no longer feel you. So we ask you to be with them, giving them the strength and helping them through this time of pain and suffering. Thank you again for everything, and so be it.